Greetings Internet, it's Monica, and today I am so excited because I'm coming at you all with a new recent reads video. I feel like it's been a minute since I've done one of these, and I'm really excited because I actually have quite a few books that I read in January and even at the end of 2020 that I am just really excited to discuss with you all. Recently I posted a video about my 2021 reading goals, and I talked about some of the ways that I'm going to try and achieve those more intentionally and consistently, and I feel like that has had a really positive impact on my reading so far this year. So I'm just feeling very proud about that. I know that there are some people who can read like 20 books in a month, but the fact that I read 7 in January, I'm just feeling pretty good. Before I dive in, I just gotta do a little bit of a quick self-promo. If you aren't following me over on my Instagram or my TikTok, I will have them both linked down below. I've been having a lot of fun on TikTok, just creating a lot more like makeup and fashion content, and then my Instagram is where I tend to upload the most. I try to post daily, at least in my feed or stories, so if you want more of me, you can find me there. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe so that you can get all of my future videos. So this first set of books I'm not going to wax on too long about because I did just recently talk about them in my recent Darlings video. So if you want me to talk even more in depth about my feelings, you can check that out. But it is the Heartstopper graphic novel series. This was a partial reread for me, and it was also one of my goals for the first quarter of 2021 was to read this entire series. So I'm really proud of myself that I accomplished that really early in January. So yeah, I reread the first book, which I read I think last year, and I absolutely adored it. It was just so cute. Basically, it is a contemporary romance between two boys who are in high school in England, Nick and Charlie, and it's so sweet and pure, and I just love their friend group. And then I read the next 2 books in the series, which is what is currently published. I really enjoyed reading these, and I am so excited for the series that is happening. Netflix is adapting Heartstopper, which I'm so excited for. Next was another reread for me, and that is Nevermore: The Trials of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is without a doubt one of my favorite series out there right now. I just love this series so much. It is a middle grade series. In this first book, we follow Morrigan Crow, who is blamed for all of the bad things that happen in her town, and when she's 11, she's like prophesized to die, but on that night, instead, she is whisked away by this mysterious man called Jupiter North into the land of Nevermore. When she arrives, she is entered into these trials in order to enter the Wondrous Society, which is a very exclusive society of people with particularly gifted abilities. And this book is kind of like, what's the best way I could describe it? Like Willy Wonka meets Doctor Who, and she lives in a magical hotel. It's honestly amazing. Definitely, in my opinion, one of the best YA series or best middle grade series out there. Honestly, one of the best series in general. I love it so much. And so this was one of the picks for the Magical Girl Society book club, which is a monthly book club that I host with my friend Brianna. I'll have info about it in the description box below. So we read this, everyone loved it. So then of course we also had to group read Wondersmith: The Calling of Morrigan Crow. This is the second book in the series. I don't want to talk about what this is about because spoilers, but this is like continuing the story, watching Morrigan continue to grow up, and it's just phenomenal. This was also a reread for me, and I'm so glad that I reread these first 2 books because I hadn't read the first one since I first read it a few years ago, so that was just like a really good refresher on where these characters started, and this was really good to read before going into the newest book, Hollowpox: The Hunt for Morrigan Crow. So this is the 3rd and newest book in the Morrigan Crow series, and it's so good. I this book just made me so excited for the future of this series. It's going to be 9 books in total, or at least that's what Jessica Townsend has said that she has planned out, and I am just so excited because this is the book where we really start to see the ways that the characters are maturing and the choices that they're making and the consequences that those choices are having on them as people. And it just makes me really excited for the fact that we get to watch these kids grow up in this book series. Then I realized I don't think I ever really talked about this book on my channel, and it was another Magical Girl Society pick, so I did want to talk about it, but I did read it a couple of months ago, so I'm not as fresh with it as I used to be. But it's The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco, and this is a YA fantasy. It's the first book in a series, and in it we follow T, who at the beginning of the book discovers that she is a bone witch, which basically means that she can bring the dead back to life, and her type of magic is both very like feared and ostracized, but also like revered. And we see her going from her small hometown into this like whole world of like court intrigue and her training process and all of that. So I felt kind of mixed about this one. It is definitely, the pacing is very different from your standard YA book. It's not as plot heavy or plot driven, and it's really more, honestly, it almost felt like a prequel, and it was a lot of like world building and character development. So I liked that, and I liked all of like the political stuff, and I loved the magic system and all of that. So I really enjoyed all of that. It was definitely slower paced than I think I was expecting, and sometimes I kind of had to really push myself to continue. However, by the end I felt like it really paid off, and the way that this book ends off made me super excited to see like what's next within this world. I will also say that I would maybe lightly compare it to The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. To be honest, I didn't love The Name of the Wind, but this I feel like plays with some similar narrative styles, which I did really like. So just want to throw that out there in case that interests anyone. But yeah, I think by the end of this I felt kind of in between. I wasn't like enamored and in love, but I was also super invested and interested to see like what happens next. So, and I have heard that the series just gets even bigger and better as you continue, so I do hope to eventually continue with this series. But yeah, those were my thoughts on The Bone Witch. The next one is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. This was such a mixed bag for me. So this was my Patreon book club pick, and it's a big one. And so I don't know, I feel very mixed about this book because I loved the writing. Like, the writing in this book is phenomenal. Emily M. Danforth, truly, she can write a sentence. So this book has 2 timelines that you follow. The first one is set in the 1800s at this all-girls boarding school, and then the other one is in present day Hollywood. We follow 2 actresses and a writer. The writer wrote a book inspired by the events that happened at that all-girls boarding school, because there were a lot of like really horrific things that happened, and then the 2 actresses are starring in an adaptation of that book. And so really creepy things start happening to the 3 girls in present day, and as we're watching like what's going on with them, we're also seeing all of the like creepy, horrific things that are happening in the 1800s. So what I loved about this book, I loved the writing. Like I mentioned, it's written in this very interesting narrative style, and I love books that play with like the style of narrative. So there's a lot of moments where the narrator like talks to you as the reader. There's lots of footnotes, and yeah, I just really loved that kind of reading experience. I always find it really fun. So if any of you have recommendations for more books like that, please feel free to let me know. So I really loved that, and I really loved the characters. So basically every like main character in this book is a queer woman or queer girl, and I loved that. I loved all of their stories. I loved the like how chilling this book could be. Like, this book just made things so eerie so well, and I loved all of that. The atmosphere unparalleled. So you might be wondering, why do I feel kind of mixed about this one? And it's because despite all of that, the plot just didn't hit for me. And it's mostly to do with the ending. Honestly, I almost thought that maybe I was missing pages in my book because it just kind of ends, and I don't like, not even in a way where it's like an open-ended ending. It just sort of felt like there was no ending. I don't know. It was weird and it frustrated me, and it was kind of a letdown by the end because, you know, there was all of this amazing build-up and then no real like climax, no real like, I don't know, like no real satisfaction at the end. And that was just like a bummer, you know, especially because it's a chunky book. So you get through all of this and you feel like nothing's complete. A little frustrating. At the same time, the writing is beautiful. The characters are amazing. The representation, fantastic. So I wouldn't like not recommend this book, you know, if you're interested in it, if the topic, if the themes that I mentioned sound interesting to you, I would definitely recommend maybe giving it a shot. The audiobook was great too. So yeah, I don't know. I feel very mixed about it. I want to love it so bad. I just didn't. But the writing is amazing. I want more books by Emily M. Danforth. I never read Miseducation by her, so maybe one day I'll pick that one up, but I don't know. I really wanted to love it. And then another book that I sadly felt kind of mixed about is A Winter's Promise by Christelle Dabos. This is a French YA novel that was translated into English, and I've always had such high expectations or high hopes for this series, honestly, for the very shallow reason that the aesthetic of the series is unparalleled. Like, they're just, all the covers are very pastel and beautiful, and I was like, I would love to one day own that whole series, but unfortunately I just didn't connect with this one. This was also a pick for the Magical Girl Society book club, and yeah, so basically this takes place in this world where like the earth has exploded and there's all these different arcs, which are basically these things, and each arc is like its own kingdom and has its own like society. And so we follow this girl Ophelia who lives on one arc. She's a librarian and she's a bit more timid and introverted, but also like she definitely has some like bite to her, and I really liked her character at first and was super interested in her, and especially like the whole world building of this world. Like, I just thought it was so fascinating and was really excited to dive more into that. But then she ends up getting pushed into a marriage with a man from another arc and his arc is like very wintry and cold and very cutthroat, and like people have different magical abilities. So she goes there with him and he's like the grumpiest of grumps and everyone is mean to her, and she's like constantly like physically abused by other people. Like, not like, the book doesn't glorify that by any means, but it was just like very intense, very jarring. She just has a rough time of it. She's trying to like navigate the politics of this guy's arc. It has a lot of things that I thought I was going to love. I love a broody romantic interest. I love intense political plots. I love wintry settings, and I love like world building and magic systems that are like really unique like this is. However, I just feel like none of that connected with me. Like, the politics were fine, but I completely stopped caring about Ophelia somewhere in like the first third of the book because she totally lost her personality, I felt like. So the like political stuff just like I couldn't really find myself to care, and also because like the society as a whole was like so horrible that I was like, I don't even know what I'm rooting for right now. Also, the main love interest, like, yeah, I like brooding guys, but it was just like to a new level. I just couldn't ship them at all because I was like, where are any of the emotions? I see none. Which, I mean, to be fair, maybe that's how you're supposed to feel in this first book. That's kind of what I've heard. And then the atmosphere was also a big letdown, and that was probably the biggest letdown for me because I can forgive a lot if I am able to like really fall into the world of a novel, and this just like did not have that. You know, I love like The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden and Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. Those are two very like winter setting kind of books, and when I read them, it like I felt like I was in winter, you know, like I felt cold. And in this, it just felt very lackluster to me, and I didn't really feel any of what it was trying to describe. And I have heard from other people who have read other translations that they felt differently, so maybe it is an issue with translation, I'm not sure. But yeah, this one just didn't work for me. I will say that I have heard from other people who have read it that it gets better as the series progresses. And again, like there are so many things about this book that sound like things that I would love. So I do feel compelled to try and read future books in the series. We'll see if that ever actually happens. But yeah, this was definitely a huge disappointment for me. And then I did want to end on a happy note. So here is a book that I absolutely adored, and it is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. So this is a standalone fantasy novel by Brandon Sanderson, who is one of my absolute favorite authors. And this is a book that I've been meaning to read for so long. My friend Reagan has been yelling at me to read this book, I think for like years, for as long as I've known her. Basically has told me that I will love this book, and I should have listened to her earlier because she was not wrong. I was finally inspired to pick this one up though because someone, I still have not solved this mystery, but someone sent me this book off of my Amazon wish list, and I don't know who it was. If it was anyone watching this video, please let me know, because it haunts me. The fact that I have not thanked whoever sent this to me. But yeah, I adored this one. I always struggle to describe Brandon Sanderson's stories because I feel like I always just sound so convoluted because they're so like tightly woven, and like the magic system is always so like intricate and nuanced, but I'm gonna try my best. Basically, this is set in a world where magic is like color based, and people are born with like a breath, and so your breath enables you, I know it sounds weird it sounds weird when I'm describing it, but when you're reading it, it's not. But your breath, like you could basically breathe life into inanimate objects and like give them commands to do things. And we follow these two princesses who come from a kingdom called Astra, and in Astra they're very austere, and they, you know, don't like extravagance at all, and they don't do any sort of magic, and they don't sort of really participate in any of that like breath stuff. And so one of the princesses ends up getting sent to marry the god king in Hallandren, and Hallandren is this kingdom that's like just the complete opposite, super extravagant. There's lots of like gods who have been reborn, and there's just lots to dive into. So she gets sent to this kingdom to marry their god king, and then her sister ends up going after her to try and rescue her and save her from this horrible kingdom. So it's their story, and they both go on two separate but like really powerful journeys, and their character arcs and character development through the book is just like impeccable. The world, the magic system, everything about it was so good. I totally fell into this world and I did not want to leave it. So I highly recommend checking this book out, especially if you haven't read anything by Brandon Sanderson and you've been interested to. I think this is a great place to start to sort of dip your toes in without having like a huge series to like kind of daunt you, if that is daunting for you. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Would definitely recommend. So yeah, those are the books that I have recently read. I would love to hear from you all. What are some books that you've recently read? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you read any of the books that I mentioned in this video, I would love to hear your thoughts on them. So let me know those in the comments down below, and I will talk to y'all next time. Bye!